You about the particular issues on cybersecurity. You and I had a chance to go into this in some detail in our conversation. As you know, the SolarWinds massive breach concerns all of us, and frankly, is not that surprising given what we had been finding, which is that the federal government is not well prepared to deal with these kinds of breaches that are going to be increasingly a challenge for us. CISA, which is the group within Homeland Security Department that you talked about earlier, I believe has been stretched too thin. They did a great job on the elections, keeping cyber attacks from happening in the election, but they, unfortunately, during that same time period, did not even know about the Russian, apparently Russian massive cyber breach. Can you comment on what CISA should do going forward? It's a new agency. Congress have given them a lot of responsibility. I don't think we've given them an adequate mission that's focused enough or adequate resources to be able to carry out that mission. So that's my view. But what is your view on CISA? What do you commit to do if you are confirmed with respect to getting CISA on its feet as a federal coordinating body to deal with cyber threats?
Mr. Chairman, this committee deserves tremendous praise for standing up CISA as the critical agency in the Department of Homeland Security that really owns the cybersecurity mission on behalf of the department. And I think Congress deserves credit for the NDAA's provisions, further equipping CISA to meet its statutory obligations and the challenges and opportunities that it confronts. CISA must improve the cyber hygiene of the federal government, the many departments and agencies throughout it. It must strengthen the public-private partnership, not only for the benefit, of course, of the federal government, but for the benefit of the private sector itself. I take stock of the fact that the Solarium Commission's recommendation for a national cybersecurity director was passed. I think this is going to require an all-of-government approach, and there's a great amount that will rest on the shoulders of CISA, and I hope I have the privilege to lead the department and support CISA in meeting those obligations.
That's good. And you talked about cyber hygiene. The Federal Information Security Modernization Act, also known as FISMA, looks at the agencies every year and decides how they're doing. And DHS cybersecurity program was rated ineffective. So it's not just that CISA needs to work on the rest of government. There needs to be a little work in-house to be able to straighten that out. Are you committed to doing that?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. We need to lead by example.
We talked earlier a little about the drug issue, and as you know, I'm the author of the STOP Act, which has been effective at keeping some of this fentanyl from coming in from China by mail. Unfortunately, the department, particularly CBP, has not been moving forward as they should to be able to implement that. The CBP regulations regarding how the STOP Act will be implemented were due in October of 2019. October of 2019, they still haven't been finalized. As a result, the STOP Act, which said that we have to require China to provide this advanced electronic data on all packages by the end of last year, so a couple weeks ago, was not met. And Congress stepped in with my support, and we gave them another 3 months. Otherwise, hundreds of thousands of packages would have been turned away. But we've got to get these regulations in place, and we've got to be sure and meet that new March 15th deadline. Are you committed to doing that, to make sure those regulations are put in place and that we can get the STOP Act fully implemented?
I certainly am, Mr. Chairman, and when we last spoke, you notified me of this issue, and I followed up, and should I have the privilege of being confirmed, one of my priorities will be to make sure that we promulgate those regulations, because I very well understand the urgency of the threat that you have identified.
We've got to keep this poison coming in our communities directly by our U.S. mail system. We know we have more to do on the border now, too, because that's where much of it has shifted. On E-Verify, I take your answer earlier to Senator Romney. I thought his question was excellent about the need for us to strengthen E-Verify. It's not just a matter of making sure that more companies step up and voluntarily use it. In my view, it's a matter of changing the program so it is more effective, and specifically, obviously, the issue of identification. If you have false identification, fraudulently obtained identification, then the program is not going to work effectively. Will you commit to work with us on dealing with the pull factor, which is the magnet of U.S. jobs?
Senator, I look forward to working with and commit to working with this committee on all issues that come before the Department of Homeland Security.
But specifically on E-Verify, are you willing to work with us on strengthening that program?
Yes, I am.
The trafficking center was talked about earlier. We do a lot of work in this committee on the trafficking issue. Homeland Security also has responsibilities, I said earlier. It's one of my priorities. Can you commit to looking at this issue of elevating the new center out of HSI, where it is now, to the headquarters level?
Senator, I would be pleased to look at that and the capacity of the headquarters to really administer that most effectively. I would like to study that issue, and I commit to sharing my findings with you. I understand the prioritization of that mission set, and whether it belongs in headquarters or HSI is something I would like the opportunity to review, should I be privileged to do so.
Given the mission, I think it's much more appropriate that it be at the headquarters level to be able to be effective, and we can talk about that. Secret Service, I have talked to you about this already. My understanding is that you think the Secret Service should stay at the Department of Homeland Security. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
My concern, having known a lot of members of the Secret Service, having been a protectee, is that they continue to be overworked and undervalued. And they have enormous strain on them, including right now with regard to this inauguration tomorrow. Would you agree to prioritize, from a staffing and budgeting perspective, ensuring that the Secret Service has what they need to be able to do its mission?
I would, Mr. Chairman.
We look forward to working with you on that. There are a number of issues that connected today with regard to anti-Semitism and pushing back against white supremacists. One of the things that we have done in this committee since you were last in government is we have substantially expanded the nonprofit security grant program to help with regard to all kinds of faith-based organizations and nonprofits, including synagogues and Jewish community centers and so on that have been under threat in my home state of Ohio. Specifically, Senator Peters and I led an authorization bill for the program that we got signed into law just last year. We also increased the funding this year to $180 million, and Senator Gillibrand and I are working on some other improvements to the program. My question for you is, are you willing to work with us and work with our partners around the country, and this is being done, as you know, through FEMA, to ensure that we have adequate help for these faith-based communities to be able to push back against the extremist threat, number one. And number two, my longer-term concern is sustainability. Many of these organizations are getting grants. In Ohio, frankly, a number have applied and been successful. But to sustain these programs over time, whether it's cameras, we've expanded the program in the last couple of years to include security personnel as an example, or whether it's simply having the ability to fully guard against these attacks by having the facilities hardened against potential attacks. The long-term sustainability of these programs concerns me, and I wonder if you'd be willing to work with us on that as well.
I would on both counts. Mr. Chairman, I'm very well aware of the Nonprofit Security Grant Program. Under my leadership and Secretary Johnson's leadership, we increased it. Very grateful to this committee for increasing it further, and I will understand its needs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayorkas. Senator Peters.